Hi, my name is Kelly Meraz, and I'm your General Music PLC lead for the Georgia Department of Education. This presentation is called Using Popular Music in the General Music Classroom, Games and Activities. So in the last video, I just talked about general reasons you should use hop music in your classroom, how to do that with quality music, and how to do that appropriately so your students are benefiting. So now we're going to get into some specifics of specific ways we can use popular music. So the first one is steady beat activities. So steady beat is a concept that should be taught in every single grade level, reinforced throughout a child's career in general music. And that's going to look different depending on what grade level and what ability level you're teaching. So pop music lends itself to this really, really well. You can find a fun pop music song without lyrics, which is going to be less distracting. This is where kind of karaoke and instrumental versions come in. And have students use body percussion so they can pat the beat, or they can find different places to keep the beat. Let them create that. They can use beanbags, rhythm sticks, or beat buddies, which are like little beanie babies or stuffed animals, to keep the beat. I also have a stuffed animal, a big monkey, and so sometimes I'll use the monkey and move his arms and manipulate his body, and the students have to copy the monkey, and they really enjoy that, especially kindergarten and first. So there's lots of ways that you're probably already doing the steady beat, but just do it to pop music or music from movies. Just remember to keep all those things in mind we talked about last time about finding appropriate music. For older students, as you're moving into talking about form, especially pop song form like verse, chorus, bridge, especially third, fourth, fifth grade, you can have students change the location of the beat to reinforce the form. So maybe they put the beat in one place for the verse, but a different place for the chorus, and then something completely different for the bridge to reinforce that that's a very different part of the song. And then, of course, you can have students be the leaders with some structure built in. So maybe they're leading by phrase. Each student has 8 beats. They get to lead the class. Or maybe one student is taking the entire verse. Or maybe one student is doing the whole song and they get to take turns. Structure means, it could mean how long they have, but also I find it helpful to let them know, give them a lot of choices. Remember, we can pat our body, we can clap, march in place. If they're going to use a dance move, you just have to make sure that it's reflecting the steady beat and not just crazy jumping around scribble-scrabbling, which is what I call it in my classroom, scribble-scrabble. Just, very clearly state, I have to be able to see the steady beat at all times. And if they need support with that, if a student's struggling, then you can help them, you can demonstrate for them, but just make sure that they're not just getting up there to put on a dance show. Another thing you can do is not just steady beat, but rhythm. And cup games are also a lot of fun. So for rhythm activities, you can use your rhythm flashcards that you may have, and you're playing along to them. I like to repeat each rhythm 4 times when I'm in a meter of 4, but you're using pop music. And again, instrumentals are really good for this so the kids aren't singing along, because what's going to happen when they sing along is they're going to start to play along with the rhythm of the words. But you don't want that. You want them to keep a beat or to play the rhythm that you're showing them. So non-verbal instrumental versions are great for this. If you don't have rhythm flashcards, you can use rhythm randomizers online. Rhythmrandomizer.com is a free one that I like to use, and you can set your parameters, so what meter, what note values, what difficulty, and it will pop out random rhythms that the kids can play. Have students create rhythms. They can make rhythm flashcards. They can write down rhythms and take turns playing each other's rhythms. Cup games can be really engaging. I find especially for middle grades, grade 3 through 6, a lot of them will know the actual cup game, but they can make up their own. I like to give them a menu of cup options, so things like tapping the cup on the ground, changing hands, patting rhythms on the cup. It makes it a little less overwhelming. You can also decide if you want that cup game to have a pass component or not. So with my older students, I will tell them, okay, there has to be a pass component in there somewhere. Could be at the beginning, at the end. But with my younger students, if I'm doing this with 3rd grade perhaps or 4th grade, I don't make them pass with each other. It's just a way for them to make a pattern for themselves with the cups. Explore instrumental karaoke versions, but I will say this again, listen to the whole song because you do not know what backing lyrics are going to pop up. Also make sure that the original song is appropriate for you to be using. So even without lyrics, You want to make sure you're choosing appropriate pop music. If you need help with that, please jump into the discussion and we can have a chat about which pop songs are great for cup games. You also want to be mindful of tempo. Cup games don't want to go very fast. Students will get overwhelmed and frustrated and disengage. So you want to find pop songs that have maybe a slower beat. Reggae is great for this. Funk is great for this. So genres of pop music that might not come to your mind at first, but have that slower tempo. So students will be able to have those cup games performed accurately, especially if there's a passing component. As far as the rhythm flashcards, you go at whatever tempo is appropriate for you if you're trying to go fast, slow, whatever in between. There's lots of lists online of if you're looking for a very specific tempo, you want to go 100 beats per minute, you can type that into any internet search engine and a lot of songs will come up. So use that function to kind of really nail down the tempo you want to use with your kids. Movement activities are really, really fun way to use pop music. And a lot of them are moving anyway to this music, so you want to corral that into a way that's appropriate for us to teach our movement standards. Student choreography that's appropriate for the musical genre or historical period. So my favorite example of this is I teach a Charleston lesson every year. I used to do a lot of swing dancing in college, so it's an area that I enjoy. But you can find Charleston videos online that you can learn a few basic steps. So Charleston is kind of 4 or 5 basic steps that you put into any order you want. I teach them to the kids, and then I have them make up a Charleston dance. Or another fun way to do this is if you're using rock and roll. You can wheel out all those really fun, silly rock and roll dances that were appropriate. So the twist and the swim and the monkey and the Watusi. And again, you can find online tutorials for all of these. Find some early rock and roll and let the students choreograph their own. A lot of times I'll also let them insert their own. So I'll say you have to use 3 Charleston moves and 1 modern move that you can throw in. So, 5, 6 years ago, that was the floss. They all wanted to do that. But now dances change, popular music changes, trends change. So you just want to make sure that it's appropriate for school. Always stress that to your students. With younger kids, if you're trying to delineate locomotor and non-locomotor, you can use that to do sections of the form. So a lot of times I'll say, okay, we're going to do non-locomotor to the verse, but when you hear that chorus, that catchy bit that repeats, use a locomotor movement to move around the room. And then the last one's really fun. You can modify folk dances to use with popular music. So I do this kind of a lot. I have a lot of resources for folk dancing, Phyllis Weichart resources, Amadon's resources, online resources. And so I look at the form of the dance, and then I look at a popular song. So for example, the Grumpy March, which is a really nice one. It's a line dance, so you're in 2 lines. The form of the dance is AABB. Well, Boogie Shoes by Casey and the Sunshine Band also follows that form, and it's got kind of a slow tempo. So we do the Grumpy March, but we do it to Boogie Shoes. I do this all the time, so I find pop music that follows a certain form, and then I find a folk dance that matches. So that's really your first step, match up the forms, and then we do it to the popular music, and the kids absolutely love it. They will do this all day long. They're throwing out songs that I can check. So that's a great way to incorporate popular music into your classroom. So do the folk dance with the traditional recording, but then see what pop songs you can find to do the folk dance with. And last but not least, we have guided listening. So you can do this with classical music, but you can also do it with pop music. Student or teacher created listening maps. Student created listening maps are really fun to make, especially as the kids get older and start to understand form and really express the music in a visual sense. Discover the form with your students. Label it together. You can use letters or verse, chorus, refrain, bridge terminology, and for younger kids, pictures to show the form or shapes. I've already talked about this, but keeping the beat in different places for each section is a way to keep them engaged with listening. So let them show you. When you hear a different section, change where you're putting the beat, and that gives you an instant assessment tool as well. And then the last one you can do with older kids is like a lyrical analysis. So have students write new lyrics to match the style. Could be a jazz song, a rock song, a hip hop song. So sometimes we'll practice rapping. I'll get just a regular beat going. I'll find one online. And then students are writing rap lyrics. Maybe they're just listing, I don't know, categories, listing flavors of ice cream, listing whatever they want. Or maybe they're telling a story, or maybe they're writing a blues song where they're writing that AAB pattern in a blues song. And they've listened to some blues songs, they've analyzed some lyrics, but now can they write the lyrics? And that is really engaging for kids too, because they get to express themselves musically and with their language. So I hope I've given you a lot of ideas about how to incorporate pop music in your classroom. Please jump onto the discussion and let us know what you're doing in your classroom. And if you have any questions, please let me know. We'll see you on the next video.